Wigan. It's a town in England. It's famous for a few things. Pies, rugby league, the Wigan Warriors, George Formby, and of course George Orwell, The Road to Wigan Pier, a meditation on poverty in industrial England. It's also famous for, or at least being talked about because of the Makerfield by-election. Makerfield is a collection of towns and villages, but people here generally would say, I'm from Wigan. Now, this by-election is huge. It is, I think, the biggest by-election in British history since 1922. A lot is at stake. It's the King of the North, Andy Burnham, versus the reform insurgent, Robert Kenyon. It's about the future of the Labour Party. Will they die? Could reform form a majority government? A lot of that, frankly, is up for grabs. And of course, we're going to talk about all of that. Your BBCs, your GB Newses, your Channel 4s, your Sky Newses, your newspapers, they are going to talk about the by-election and the national political questions. But this is Novara Media. And you know what? I'm going to talk in the third person. I'm Bastani. So we're going to start this little doc by talking about what's behind me. That is 25,000 tonnes of rubbish dumped illegally. One of the worst examples of illegal fly tipping in British history. 25,000 tonnes. It burned for weeks. Schools were shut. So when people talk about politics not working, when they talk about the state not protecting communities and individuals, the public good, this is what they mean, right? The state isn't working. Things aren't all that great. You can get away with doing stuff like that for months. Nothing happens. Schools are shut because of criminal activity. And here's the really interesting bit. Because this awful sight of 25,000 tonnes of rubbish, which burnt for weeks, is at the end of a residential road. And the first house you see as you walk down it has a placard. And that placard has the face of Robert Kenyon. So we've got our hands on some campaign literature. We've got Jake Austin from the Liberal Democrats. Labour has failed and reform are worse. Very Liberal Democrat message there. Vote Andy for us. Now, this is something you see on lots of Labour literature right now with Burnham. There's no mention of Labour. Restore, who are going to do relatively well, it seems, or we'll find out, but they could well keep their deposit. Rupert Lowe's face, Restore Britain. Their headline policies: deport all illegal immigrants, reverse mass legal immigration, defend Britain's Christian heritage. And that's their candidate, Rebecca Shepherd. Her local priorities actually are pretty solid: tackle antisocial behaviour, restore our high streets, back apprenticeships. Rob Kenyon, he's got this rather charming, seemingly handwritten note. Of course it's not, it's a print publication. Thousands of people will get it, but it looks very good, I must say. And he talks about Andy Burnham being a career politician who wants more immigration, refuses to stop the boats. He talks about his record in Blair's government, wanting to rejoin the EU. And then he talks about Makerfield. He talks about how, he cares about the local area, Burnham doesn't. The problem, though, is this. He's talking at two levels. One is about the community, the high street, Makerfield, but all of his criticisms about Burnham are national politics. And this is the challenge for reform in this constituency, in this by-election, which they don't seem to be meeting right now. Andy Burnham, whatever you think about him, has been in the politics game for 25 years. So his record in terms of community politics, being a quote-unquote community champion, is going to be very good. He's been doing it for a quarter of a century. And it feels like Reform are fighting a campaign, they're fighting a by-election against a candidate who isn't there. And I find that really fascinating. They want to talk about the national issues to attack Labour because that's where they're strongest: immigration, law and order, stop the boats. But at the same time, they want to talk about hyper-local politics and how Westminster has left places like Makerfield behind. You're going to struggle to do both. Are you from here originally?
I'm Ashton born lad, yeah. Through and through, went to school around here. So yeah, Ashton's in the veins, if you want to say that.
And how long have you been in the butchery game? Is it something
I've been in the butchery game since I was 12-year-old because I used to come in, tidy up, and then I left school, and then I was in here ever since.
So it was your dad's business?
It was my dad's business before mine, and I took over in the 90s. But he's still got another shop in Wigan, so... But I'll probably be the last butcher in Wigan. That's what's... nobody else is coming into butchering after me, really, around here.
There's not many left, are there?
There's no... It probably might be the same where you live, or... But yeah, it's just sad what's happened to a trade, really.
Well, a lot of shops have closed down, really, around St Helens area and this area. There used to be a bit thriving, used to be lovely markets, none of that anymore. It's a bit of a ghost town, really.
Every little northern town, you've got a B&M, Iceland, Aldi, Lidl, and they are the high street killers. They have ruined the high street because basically they've took the skill out of everybody's job. In Ashton we used to have 10 butchers, we used to have greengrocers, we used to have fishmongers. Now we've got none. I'm the last one.
What are your punters and your customers saying about the by-election?
I think Andy's pipping in the lead at the moment, where it was Reform or Restore or whatever it was. I think after this question time the other night, I think Andy's put himself in a good position.
You described yourself as a sexist. You have made offensive comments about women. You've admitted that. You've also said that abortion is the cowardly act of women murdering defenceless baby, and that women do it so they can shag anyone they want. That's your phrase, not mine.
I've made mistakes. I said things years ago that I wouldn't say now, and I definitely don't believe that on that point. I hope that addresses that issue.
Who are you planning to vote for?
He's been in here, marvellous bloke. He's done a lot for Lee. He's done a lot for Manchester with the travel. He donates 15% of his wages every year to the homeless. What more can you ask for from a bloke?
In the middle, like Andy Burnham, for a voted reform.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want Keir Starmer away.
But if you vote Andy Burnham, Keir Starmer will be out.
Yeah.
Because Burnham will be the PM.
I think Keir Starmer will get up to something.
Do you think?
It's like, yeah, I do, yeah. I think he's got it all worked out. He wants reform to win here.
Who are you planning to vote for in the by-election?
Oh, Labour.
Labour?
Yes.
Why not Reform? It's such a quick answer.
Always been Labour. They haven't done anything to make me think otherwise. Sorry.
You like Andy Burnham?
Yes, I do. Used to work for him, actually. Used to be his PA when he was a League constituent. Big family from Salford, like 14 children. My dad was a docker. I think we've got Labour ingrained in us, and it's difficult to change your ways when you've grown up and been brought up with it for that long.
No, it's Reform for me this time, I'm afraid. I think Labour's not proved themselves, really. So why not have a change? Change is as good as the rest.
Look at the streets, look at the country. We're in a mess. We've had 30 years of this globalism, and we've had 2 years of... They've done more damage in that 2 years than the last 14 of the Conservative and whatever else. So that's where I stand. We're in a desperate situation.
How should people vote here?
If the lights are switched on, they have to vote for the only lifeboat available for the sinking ship, which is Farage. It's Nigel.
I am doing a tactical vote because I don't really trust many politicians, but I do not want Reform to get in around this area.
What's the problem with Reform?
I think they're quite racist, and as a woman, I don't want to vote for Reform.
Did you watch BBC Question Time?
I have watched the highlights.
The highlights. Did you think that cost Robert Kenyon votes, that performance?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm from the north, I'm from Wigan, but I can actually string a sentence together mostly, so that's all I'm prepared to say.
Basically, my vote would go with Reform for a local candidate. Who'll basically not disappear, he'll stay around here. Like say recently, you've had like a lot of attacks on Rob Kenyon. I don't know what the media's doing, but they've not made any attacks on Mr. Burnham, and that's regarding, as Health Secretary, he was the first to oversee the privatising NHS, Operation Augusta, where he walked away from the grooming gangs, and it's all clarified by Maggie Oliver. I mean, she's no status at all. She's not saying, like, I'm on this side, I'm that. This is facts. I can't understand why a lot of people are deluded into saying he's going to fix the pension, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. I just don't believe it. I honestly don't believe it.
Do you think he's better or worse than Keir Starmer?
I think he's on a par. I think he's more to the left, and I actually think he'd be worse.
Why would he be worse?
He's more left.
He's more affable than Keir Starmer, right? He's more normal than Keir Starmer.
You said that, but in 16 years at Lee, he did nothing for Lee, and that's just up the road, though. He did nothing for Lee. You're turning around and saying he did the sports village, did this, did that, but that was with Conservative money what got pumped in when they won the election up there.
And what do you make of the Reform candidate, Robert Kenyon?
The Reform's throwing him under the bus. He's never held a political position. He might have been a councillor, but to be an MP is a totally different project, different job altogether.
The kitchen sink hasn't turned up here. As Nigel said, we're going to throw the kitchen sink at it. We haven't seen the kitchen sink. I've not seen any Reform canvassers in this area in the last 4 days that I've been here.
Do people talk positively about Reform?
They do, but it's all about immigration, and that's what all people are grasping around here, and that's what it's all about. But
do you think they're a one-trick pony as a party? It's just the immigration party.
I think, yeah, they're making promises they can't keep. Because, like you said, we'll just turn the boats back. Well, how can you turn boats back in the busiest shipping lane in the world? What do you want? Do you want bodies to come up on the beach, dead and things like that? I think they're making promises they can't keep.
And do you think most of your punters sort of recognise that? Like, it's a complex problem?
That will be if Andy wins or loses. That is the big question. I have 2 Thai girls what work for me here, right? And they're doing it legally. So it's going to cost them £10,000 each just to become a citizen, right? Now, they go to college in Wigan to learn about English. A legal immigrant, you sat at the side of them, they get the course for free and even get a voucher at the end of the thing to get some meat food. Now, that's not fair. You've got a 2-tier justice immigration system, and that's what's happening. We don't seem to do anything straight in this country. And it isn't fair. Honestly, I've got 2 Thai girls here, and that's what they're paying. Well, by the time they have to give so much when they come over, $2,500 to the NHS. Honestly, you wouldn't believe it. And yet, Mo in the E6 shop here gets it given free house. But what the problem is, and this is where we're all guilty, can film this, right? When we want a cheap pack of fags, where do we go? To E6, these sort of shops. If we want a cheap kebab on a Saturday night, where do we go? Kebab shop. If we want a car's clean on a Sunday, we go to, a car wash where they're all legal immigrants. So really, we're a bit hypocritical, really, that, if you think about it, you're funding this, on, money laundering. And that's what we're doing. We've got to decide one way or another that you can't have these sorts of places, but would you pay somebody 70 quid to clean your car on a Sunday? That's what it is in a nutshell, really.
And what do you think of the vape shops? There's so many.
So many. I don't understand because I don't smoke. Just so many everywhere. You go past, I didn't even know what they were, but now they're everywhere, aren't they? People just gamble now and drink, don't they? Because they're just desperate, I suppose.
This really sums it up. You've got the takeaways, you've got the vape shops, you've got the street scars. Look, they say they're temporary, but they stay there for multiple years. You've got the empty telephone box over there. Just remove it. Why would you expect ordinary people, citizens, taxpayers, why would you expect them to give a shit about their community when clearly the state doesn't give a shit about the community, when the powerful don't give a shit about the community? It's the public equivalent of not making your bed. Sorry to appropriate a line from Jordan Peterson, but it's true. And dare I say, it's the political equivalent of low self-esteem. Jordan Peterson's right about some things, although this is about the public realm. And that low self-esteem feeds through to what? Anger, hatred. It's often misplaced, isn't it? You're blaming somebody for something. Now, you might think that migrants or refugees are the reason for X, Y, Z. What, for that telephone box being there? For these street scars? The vape shop? Now, you might say, well, that's because it's a front for refugees. The landlord is allowing those people to be there. I know many businesses who've left because of rent rises. The rent goes up, and it's those kind of businesses that go in their place. The landlord never says, well, hold on, that bike shop or that cafe couldn't afford to pay the rent, but now this vape shop can. They don't ask that question. They should ask that question. There's a very obvious reason why they can't afford it, by the way. Often it's because they're doing things they shouldn't be doing. Again, we can't just let the right own that conversation, because if we do, we're screwed, and I would say we're not going to get the right solutions. We've just heard that there is a Labour canvassing operation just around the corner from where we are. We're going to go and try and accost them. Wait, is that people coming to canvass from a fucking coach? It's a carnival atmosphere here, isn't it?
Well, I think people are feeling hopeful again, I think people are feeling like Andy might kind of change things, you know, and I think they're right to think that.
So Gordon and Denton, I presume, was a different kind of context for you. You're more enthusiastic about this one?
It was very clear that we were being punished, quite understandably so, for the way that the National Party was acting. I mean, campaigning for Burnham back in his old stomping grounds is a very different kettle of fish. The potential that we actually have a really interesting and innovative policy programme to actually stand for again, which is very, very different.
So you left the Labour Party?
I did, yes. I left in 2022, it would have been.
Why did you leave in 2022?
Well, I joined when Jeremy Corbyn was leader in, it would have been 2016 or 17. And, when it got to 22, it was quite obvious at that point that, you know, Keir had started a complete purge of the left.
The fallout on the Mandelson stuff and the way that entire group around Keir's office has unravelled, I think, has kind of been testament to the fact that a lot of the sort of the worst criticisms of his regime at the time were true. And actually, it looks like, regardless of what happens now, he's on his way out. So, yeah.
I think the whole atmosphere changed after Gorton and Denton, you know. The ability to squeeze votes on kind of saying that it's Labour or Reform, that was completely decimated, right? And I think Andy's rightly challenging the culture in the party of, which is more authoritarian than even under kind of Blair and New Labour, you know, under Starmer. So I think having a party which respects the traditions of the Labour Party, which, you know, I'm a part of and many people on the left have been a part of for decades, I think will lead to a better government. And it's basically the only way that you're going to defeat reform is through having a broad-based party, and I believe that's the Labour Party.
If Burnham wins, and if Burnham becomes the Prime Minister, not set in stone, but quite plausible at this point, you might be able to draw a line between the Greens winning in Gorton and Denton and Burnham becoming PM. Because that was the moment that this Starmer strategy of, well, the left has nowhere else to go, stop reform, that's going to keep us safe, and it kind of died in Gorton and Denton.
I don't know whether it's attributing to Starmer, to be honest. I mean, the McSweeney strategy, really, of changing the party internally while we were in opposition, even if you subscribe to that view, and it's at least an internally coherent view for those people, you can't kind of do that in opposition when people aren't paying too much attention. But when you're in government and you're suspending MPs for, you know, calling out for standing up for removing the two-child benefit cap, for standing up for against some of these immigration reforms, you know, you're at that point, you're really sending a message to voters in the country about what you think of those views.
You're getting a decent idea, I imagine, of where you are.
Well, so I would say from the sessions that I've done, so I was here last week as well, I'd say it's positive in terms of the numbers, and I'm definitely expecting Andy to win here.
People are really confident. The polling returns look good, the national polling looks good. But what happens if Burnham loses?
It's a difficult question because I'd say this is probably the most important by-election maybe in, you know, British history. You know, you've got a situation now where if Burnham wins, he's possibly replacing the Prime Minister. You know, he's becoming leader of the country. If he loses, this is showing that Labour can't win in a constituency that's, you know, voted Labour for, well, since it existed.
If there's a rejection of a broad left opposition, and you get into a situation where the left is split, where you've got the far right visibly being seen as taking areas like this, I really don't know where you go. It's scary.
What about Restore?
They've definitely got a presence, for sure. So coming across probably about 5 or 6 Restore voters last week, and today we've come across 2. So they're not just internet hype, they have kind of broken out into a real thing for sure.
Somebody might be watching me talking to you, seeing you canvass, this big bunch of you, for Restore, and they might be shouting, what are you doing? You're stopping Reform from winning this by-election. You're going to give Andy Burnham this seat. What would your response be?
This is a two-party system piece of rhetoric, right, that you're splitting the vote. Now, you could say the same thing to Reform in 2024, where I think they stood second place in like 83 constituencies, essentially handing Labour a general election on a mandate on like 30% of the vote. If they want to portray Restore as somehow selfish, that they're not standing down from Reform. Why don't Reform stand down?
Well, they would say because they're polling first. You know, if they were polling at, say, 8% nationally in terms of the national opinion poll surveyation for this by-election, and you were polling 40% circa, they would maybe say, OK, but that's not the case.
Elections like this are always considered in terms of polls quite unpredictable. I mean, if you look at, for example, Gorton and Denton, it was a neck-and-neck race between the Greens and Reform. Turns out the Greens won by thousands of votes.
Well, I think that Reform have essentially nuked themselves. The whole Nadeem Zahawi thing. Nadeem Zahawi is a mass killer for what he did with the jabs in the lockdowns, those COVID jab rollouts. They have killed people, they have crippled people. What was done was completely and utterly criminal and unethical, and he needs to be put in prison at the very least. At the very least, he needs to go to prison. The idea that Reform would take someone like him in is just absolutely unspeakable. Why don't they take in Alistair Campbell after the amount of people he's killed with the Iraq War? And then Jenrick. We've got the worst immigration minister in the whole history of this entire country, going back, you know, even 1066 probably had less migration, okay, proportionate to the population than Robert Jenrick brought in his, what, about 14 months as immigration minister? And then what they've done is they've sort of doubled down. So they've alienated the crowd that's against mass migration, right? They've alienated the crowd that doesn't want, you know, children to be poisoned or adults poisoned with these toxic, poisonous, evil jabs, and completely oppose all of the sickening things being done by Big Pharma, right? But then they decide to back a forever war. They decide they want to back the Americans in bombing Iran, starting another war, and then they talk about, you know, reducing fuel taxes. Well, they created the problem, which is why I went down to Westminster not too long ago and I asked Richard Tice about this. And they don't really have an answer.
People want mass deportations. People want, you know, radical change. They don't want just the hotel shut down and the illegals gone. They want this country's changed radically over the past 20, 30, 50, how many years, demographically as well. And people see it.
But Reform is saying they'll deport people. 600,000, right?
Reform, yeah, but they've only got a 6-page long mass deportations paper, and I think that really goes to show where their priorities lie. They're more than happy to do flashy conferences with, you know, Butlin-style fireworks, but you look at their actual policy, it's 6 pages long, whereas Restore Britain, I believe it's 114.
It's 120, and I would also add as well, from the perspective of someone who's quite young, Matt Goodwin, who leads the youth wing, said that young people are our target demographic. Now, if you look at the people in Bristol like Charlie Downs or Lewis Brackpool, they're quite young. They want to signal to young people of being nationalistic, you know, having a common sense of meaning, of being ancestors of our land and actually being proud of being our people. Optically, what Reform looks like is Tory 2.0 with a bunch of boomers, and they're only really caring about the boomer generation.
When you sort of look at their live streams, you see a lot of grey hair. And amongst the youth, they sort of nuke themselves. Because one thing I've noticed, being down in Great Yarmouth and also being here, is there is actually a marginal between people who vote Greens and people who vote Restore. Because there are a lot of people who recognise there are problems in this country. And if someone doesn't know what the solution is, they might go Green or they might go to Restore. Because you've got two radical solutions that are very much away from the current system. Now, one of them is obviously completely crazy, which the Green Party are completely crazy on their solutions. They would turn us into, you know, some third world communist state. But people who aren't sure, people who are on the fence and just say, I need to reject the establishment, they could go either way.
Henry's family have responded to this in just the most extraordinarily dignified way. But I suggest the rest of us respond to this with pure, cold rage.
What did you guys make of Nigel Farage's response to the awful killing of Henry Novak in Southampton and, of course, the release of the body cam footage? He said some really powerful things, and I would have thought you would agree with his conclusions about cold rage.
Well, we do agree with it, but we have a more realistic take on why he actually said it. Well, I think what he said was 100%, literally 100% about the Makerfield by-election, because he's been challenged from his political right by our party. So now this is a perfect opportunity for him to be like Mr. Man of the People, Mr. Non-PC, you know, engineering a kind of race row with the Tory party, which will appeal to the voters he wants to take from us in Makerfield. That is, it's cynical opportunism.
What I saw in Southampton was quite unnecessary, but it did actually explain the frustrations of the British people.
Civil unrest is the inevitability of mass migration. As soon as an area is demographically replaced, this is what happens, because people no longer recognise the Britain that they previously knew from their generation, from their family, from their ancestors.
Isn't it strange? As soon as you get north of Staffordshire, the weather can turn on a sixpence. Hello. You all right? We're just here to speak to a representative from Reform, ideally. Is there anybody we can speak to?
Not at the moment, no. Rob's out, and yeah, everyone's out at the moment canvassing.
Anybody else? Richard Tice or Lee Anderson?
Yeah, Lee's in the constituency, but he's out canvassing as well.
Do you know
so there's no one in the office. I don't,
him.
I'm afraid.
So we weren't allowed admission into Reform campaign HQ. They don't really want to talk to us. They can't talk to us. More importantly, they don't want us to talk to their members or their campaigners. And I would say they don't want us to talk to their candidate. Which again is fine. They want to talk to voters. They're the people that matter. I get it. But this is a problem for Reform. You know, you want to be a mainstream party. You want to have a majority. You want to send somebody into number 10 Downing Street. You're going to have some engagement with people you disagree with. And you're going to have some open interface with the public. This isn't it. So what did we learn from our trip to Makerfield? Beautiful Makerfield. The first big takeaway. Labour are very confident. You might say too confident. They're ebullient. Their canvassing returns basically reflect what national polling says. They're very confident. Surprisingly so, given the stakes. This is, after all, I think the most important by-election since 1922. If Labour lose this by-election, it is the end of the Labour Party. Second learning. The Tories are dead. The Tories are dead. Nobody is talking about the Tory party. We didn't meet anybody planning to vote Tory. We didn't meet any Tory canvassers or activists. We didn't see a single Tory party poster or garden stake anywhere. They basically are like the monster raving loony party at this point. They don't exist. One half of the two-party system has collapsed. It's gone. Thirdly, Reform. We met lots of Reform voters. They exist. Very few of them said the candidate was actually any good, and I think Question Time was a major fumble for him. It's a dream. Imagine you're a Labour canvasser, you knock on a door, I'm undecided, just watch Question Time. Could Reform have won this with a better candidate? Everybody said after Matt Goodwin in Gorton and Denton, get a local person. And of course Reform's vision was a local person, like Hannah Spencer. Indeed, Rob Kenyon is a plumber, but he's not politician enough, it turns out, to win. We'll see. That's my suspicion. But while we saw Reform voters, we didn't see any Reform activists or canvassers, which was really, really interesting. Really interesting. There was that gentleman I spoke to saying Farage said he'd throw the kitchen sink at this constituency. I don't see a kitchen sink. Nor did I, if I'm perfectly honest. The Greens, they've played this very well. Sometimes you don't need to win a battle. Sometimes you don't even need to fight it. You can just sit things out. And actually that's tactically the smart thing to do. That's precisely what they've done. Restore. Now this is a fascinating one. They're polling 8% according to Survation. They're going to keep their deposit according to Survation. We saw their canvassers. Lots of people are saying their vote is real. We didn't meet any Restore voters. Do I think there's huge differences between Keir Starmer and Andy Burnham when it comes to their policy agendas? Absolutely not. I think Andy Burnham has some idea of what he actually believes in, unlike Keir Starmer. But in terms of the menu, in terms of the options, very similar. Same universe. Higher minimum wage, bring Rowland's public ownership, and the 2-child benefit cap. Keir Starmer's done all of that. And that's the problem for Labour, I think. Everybody we spoke to today concedes Britain has major problems. Nobody I spoke to in Makerfield, nobody thinks that Britain's doing well. Nobody's optimistic, nobody's hopeful. They want a bold agenda for change. All the politicians talk about a bold agenda for change, but nobody actually thinks that's going to happen. And my worry with Burnham is that he just confirms that cynicism. He just confirms it. He just prices in further scepticism about the possibility of doing something different. And I think that's the job of the Green Party, right? To say, no, we are the alternative. It's why it's very important for them to not just disappear. Personally, I'm not optimistic about Burnham as a PM and the political possibilities that brings. Not because I just like the guy, I think he's quite affable, I think he's got very lovely eyelashes, but because of the Labour Party machine. He's just one guy, and fundamentally that organisation has so far proven incapable of governing effectively. Alongside Burnham, though, for me the real story was Restore. Not because I met the voters, because I didn't. Not because I met the canvassers, because canvassers are 2 a penny, every party has those. But because I met 2 people today, within just a couple of hours, who were very influential, powerful parts of a broader online media ecology. And that is powering the rise of Restore, particularly with the very young, particularly with young men. Do I think that means Restore are going to come to power anytime soon? Absolutely not. But when you look at the big macro variables, flatlining economy, declining consent in terms of political arrangements, continued inability of mainstream parties to solve basic political problems like 25,000 tons of shit being dumped somewhere, then actually these kinds of people and these kinds of networks and these kinds of alternatives should be looked at, because I suspect that's a glimpse of the future.